Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Rehan, and I'm the Business Relationship Manager for Santander. And it's a pleasure being here with you all discussing, trying to make sense of what business banking is, and trying to share best practice with you all today. And if you've got any questions at any time, just feel free to pop your questions into the comment section. And also, we'll be looking to share some examples of everyday sort of business banking clients that we've sort of come across, and hopefully give you a good sense and to prepare for your business journey. Just a bit of background about myself. So I've been with the bank with Santander for the last sort of 10 years. I've worked in numerous roles throughout the 10 years, and my current role as a business relationship manager, I've been in there for the last 5 years supporting new startups to grow businesses. So prior to that, I actually studied at the University of Salford. I studied business management in the class of 2010. So I do have a bit of knowledge around sort of helping people and businesses. Hopefully I can bring that to life today throughout this presentation. So just moving on to the next slide. Helping people and business prosper. So we are serious about business banking, and by that we mean that we've got 230 business relationship managers throughout the UK supporting new startup businesses, yourselves to growth stage. We've got over 80 partner universities across the UK and a dedicated team of university relationship managers. We've given out over £500 million in lending to small and medium enterprises since 2012. And you can sort of imagine that sort of grown over the last 12 to 24 months during the pandemic. We've given over £420,000 that we've awarded to entrepreneurs from across the UK through our annual entrepreneurship awards. And we've got a whole range of non-financial support as well, such as our breakthrough events that we host in branch and online. So things where we invite subject matter experts to talk about finance or talk about marketing to help and support local businesses. And we have over 1,400 paid internships that have been created with UK SMEs, and that's our university relationships that we have as well. On the call today, we also have Damien Murray, who's the Deputy Relationship Director for Santander Universities in the UK, who's worked across the bank in many sort of senior management roles. And if you've got any questions for Damien at the end, we'll be more than happy to answer any questions as we go along and towards the end of the presentation about our university relationships that we have as well. So, the role of a bank in your business. So today we're going to talk about in more detail what the role is of a bank in your business and how important that can be, and what support is available to you as a new startup business. And just want to make it a bit more interactive as well, so we'll just be using the chat service. So before we go any further, let's just get a feel of what we've got in the room so far, so with the people that have joined. So if you can answer this question in the chat for me. So does anyone already have a business that's currently trading and making money? So if you just want to answer yes or no in the comment section for me. So again, does anyone already have a business that's trading and making money? Okay, so we've got a few no's. Anyone else? Okay. Yeah, so you've got a few yeses as well. Brilliant. So next question to you all is, got a yes or no in the comment section for me? Okay, so we've got Murat, who's still planning it. Brilliant. Any others? No, brilliant. So again, part of what we're going to be talking about today will help provide some thought and sort of give you some food for thought really on what you should be asking a bank and what support a bank can offer through its relationship managers. So just take a moment and just read the quote that's on the screen. So for many, the demands of running a business will leave little time for building financial expertise. Now, this quote may resonate with some of you, and essentially, finance is typically the aspects of business that most people are unsure of or lack experience in. So no one really expects you to be an expert at everything that you do. However, think about finance at the forefront in everything that you do when you do start a business. So in a certain time frame, whether that's on a weekly, monthly, or yearly basis, you can produce cash flow forecasts, for example, to see how the business will look like in terms of finance over the course of the year. And if that's not something that you're familiar with or you want help, there are external bodies like accountants and bookkeepers that will be able to support you with producing cash flow forecasts and helping you with your annual accounts. And one of the things that you can consider as well when you are thinking about finance is think about what if scenarios. So what if we go into another lockdown? How is your business going to survive? How are you going to pay your tax bill? Or how are you going to pay your employees, for instance, if you've got employees? And there's other software, things like Xero, which is accounting software that you can have run alongside your business, which will help you with supporting you with your finances. So again, you know, how much time do you spend thinking about finance over other aspects of your idea? So have a think about that, and you know, consider whether finance actually worries you as well. So rather than leaving it at the back of your mind and just thinking about your product or service that you're offering, you know, really think about finance and how that's going to improve your business from a financial perspective. So the next slide, so business credibility and professionalism. So when you're in business, your image really matters. Now, if you're writing a check, for example, from a personal account, it's not really going to help your image, is it? It's going to make it appear as you're only sort of in business, or even worse, you know, that you've just started a business. So it doesn't really sort of convey any strength or credibility to either your customers or organizations if you are conducting business with other businesses. Now, that image doesn't exactly convey strength or build confidence with customers and clients. Now, your idea might have started as a hobby, and that you might find it's turned into something far bigger. So you might have started, you know, selling clothes online through Facebook, your personal account. So have a think about actually, if you're onto something and it's turning into a reality, start thinking of setting up a business Facebook page, for instance, having a totally separate online presence for your business. Now, you might not get around to setting up a business email address, for instance, and still using your personal one, but people will be reluctant to communicate through what looks like a personal email address. And people are more aware of financial fraud. You want to give customers that confidence when they're paying money into a legitimate account. But you will not be able to offer. So for instance, if you're using a personal account, for instance, you won't be able to offer different payment methods. So the only way that customers will be able to pay you will be through either cash or a bank transfer. You're not going to be able to allow your customers to pay via car terminals or take payments via websites, for instance. So just to give you a quick example of a client I personally dealt with, just quite a few months back actually, and they were running their business through their personal account, and they were onto something big. They created their website, it was brand new. They contacted a merchant service provider. Now, those that don't know what a merchant service is basically a payment service provider. So you see card terminals when you go into shops to pay for items. You see the infrastructure behind websites which allow you to make a payment. So these services are provided by merchant services. So with the particular client that I was dealing with, they were using their personal account for their business transactions. They acquired an infrastructure to take payments via their website, and when it came for the payment company to transfer the money into the customer's bank account, they asked for confirmation from that client to confirm whether it was a business account or not. So some companies will do prior due diligence and ask for business account details before they actually onboard you as a customer, and some will do it after. So with this particular customer, they had money held up for over 4 weeks until that customer applied for a business account and was able to give their merchant service provider confirmation that they have now got a business current account. So again, it's just really important about building business credibility and being a professional business, because not everybody likes to deal with personal accounts when it comes to business. And it's just going back to the last slide about building confidence and strength about your business. So again, you can see a few examples on the screen there. So again, if you don't have if you've got a limited online presence, for example, it's not really going to convey strength. Again, if you've got limited social media pages for the business. And again, one of the other things that banks have started to look at is your business plausible? So what we mean by that is you have an online presence for the business, and the banks see what kind of activity you're carrying out online. Are you who you say you are? Have you got sort of documentary evidence to provide the activity that you're carrying out so that they can help support opening an account? Now, not every bank will ask you for these documents or information. However, a lot have started doing so. So it's good to build that credibility from the ground up and show a professional approach when it comes to business. Which sort of leads us on to the next slide, which is getting into good habits. Now, there isn't a legal requirement to open a separate bank account, okay? And you'll get into better habits from the start if you do. One thing I want to point out here, so it's not a legal requirement to open a separate business account from the law's perspective. However, from a banking perspective, banks will have it in their terms and conditions that you can't use a personal account for business purposes. Okay? You may well start off with a personal account to do a few transactions, but that's really when you want to start moving it over into a business current account. Now, as you can see from the bar chart, over a third of customers, personal customers account, have managed their self-employment finances through their personal account, and less than a third have actually opened a business current account. So again, getting into good habits from the start will allow you to build that strength and credibility and support that you require going forward when your business does grow. Banks will be more prone to sort of help and support you as you go along. So let me give you a quick example. So I had a customer where they were doing energy performance certificates for residential properties up and down the country for big property management companies. And they were using their personal account for all their transactions. So you can imagine if you're doing over 100 surveys every single week, the amount of transactions that will be flowing through your account. And he actually sort of came to me and said, look, I've been using my personal account for the last 4 or 5 years, and it's an absolute nightmare to manage my account. I spend all weekends going through my transactions, highlighting what's for business, what's for personal, and then towards the tax year, I give that to my accountant, and my accountant's fed up as well at the same time. So what we looked at for the customer as a solution was to set up a business current account and separate all their transactions. That's the first thing that we did. The second thing that we looked at was, would accounting software be useful for this type of customer? So banks will allow third-party software such as Xero, so the customer can upload any receipts that they're getting, and the accountant can directly look into the software and conduct all your sort of tax returns or finances, produce your cash flow forecasts, etc. for you. So it's really good to have that in place. So with this customer, having separated everything, put onto the Xero accounting software, the customer could spend more time with his family on the weekends rather than worrying about his business, and spend more time making money really, rather than being bogged down with manually trying to figure out what's personal, what's business in terms of their transactions. And a recent business deadline survey found that 16% of businesses fell into debt did so because of poor money management as well. And keeping your business and personal finances separate will help you manage your money better. And again, you might want to use a bookkeeper or an accountant to do so. So that's basically going through and keeping good habits as you go along your business journey. HMRC. Now, a lot of people think HMRC can't be your friend, but they're a really important part of running a business, and the administration that they'll ask of you highlights the importance of good record keeping. So obviously you can see on the screen there, there's fines. So if you don't submit your tax returns or tell HMRC the income that you've generated through your self-employment over the course of your tax period, and especially for sole traders, or even someone starting new in business, there'll be, you'd want to avoid any sort of late penalty fines to make sure that you're working with HMRC rather than against. So again, going back to the point of keeping your business and finances separate, it's a key point. Although not a legal requirement, it'll help you enormously when it comes to completing, for example, your end of year tax returns. Now, don't just see these as financial penalties. It will also have an impact on your credibility as a business as well, and in worst cases can lead to closing your business down as well. So just to give you a quick example, so during last year, just before the tax year in March, I actually had a customer come to me saying, I've got a 20k tax bill, however, I ain't got any money to pay for it, so I'm looking to borrow some money. So had this customer budgeted and created a cash flow forecast, you wouldn't really be in this position. So we were able to support the customer through finance option, such as a business overdraft facility for a short period of time, so that they could pay their tax bill and get on with their day-to-day banking and run their business as normal. But you're actually putting yourself in more debt by taking on more finance than what you actually need. Have the customer, each month put some money aside for tax or VAT, for instance. The customer wouldn't have been in this particular position, and wouldn't have to worry about, where's the cash going to come from to pay my tax bill. So again, we'll sort of cover this off in a bit more detail as we go along in terms of what services banks will offer, and how you can sort of separate your funds through different types of accounts. So on the screen, you can see 3 lenders, which are quite big in the UK, and obviously there's a local one at the bottom as well. Now, these lenders, in their terms and conditions, say that a business account is required. So if you apply for a business loan or overdraft or credit card, with these particular organisations, they will require you to have a business current account before they can pay the money into your account. Now, some of you might be able to secure some early stage funding for your business. Now, perhaps it's a small startup grant or a larger investment to support your research and development. Most funders will want to pay funds into your business account rather than personal, and your funding may be delayed or even declined altogether if you can't get an account open in time. And some funders will ask you to include your bank details at the application stage. Again, some will want to validate that after you've submitted it. To give you another example, a client of mine whose friend was running a CIO company. So if you're not familiar with the term, it means a community interest organisation. A lot of students do tend to set up these types of sort of legal structures when starting out. And basically, this particular person set up a business account with, I'm not going to name the bank, but with a bank, and they were working really hard to get on with their business. They were applying for funding through government organisations, so on and so forth. After some time, they secured a grant of £2,000, and one of the questions or one of the confirmations that the organisation asked for was do you have a business account that's specifically for your type of organisation that you are operating, i.e. a non-for-profit organisation that's operating in the interest of the community. So this individual went back to their bank and said, can I get a confirmation letter confirming that I've got the right account so that they can pay the grant into my account? And the bank said, they came back after a while and said, well, actually, you don't have the right type of account. You've got a standard business current account, which was not the right account. So after sort of going back and forth with the bank, the customer was not able to provide the organisation that asked for a letter from the bank confirming that they had the right account in time, and therefore lost that grant. So the point to take from here is make sure that you've got the right legal structure in place. Now, I'll cover sort of the legal structures off at the end of the presentation in a bit more detail, but just to make that point is make sure you've got the right legal structure in place and you've got the right type of account, type of business, or work or service that you are carrying out. Okay. That leads us on to managing your portfolio career. So in the comment section, if you want to just put down if you are juggling a job along with studies, or if you've got a side business or a side hustle. And by side hustle, I don't mean selling drugs or anything like that. We mean if you've got an actual business. Brilliant, we've got some coming in. Any others? Just wait a moment. Okay, so we'll leave it as that. So it's increasingly common for young people today. Oh, I think we've got one. We've got Crystal, who's looking at a pre-startup business. Brilliant. So as I was saying, it's increasingly common for young people today to be juggling a portfolio career. And by that we mean a combination of having several part-time jobs at once, or balancing full-time work with starting a business or even a side hustle. And that sort of leads to probably means tax affairs will get more complicated. So keeping separate accounts for different income and expenditure will help you keep things on top of things. So for instance, things that you need to consider is, are you paying the right amount of tax and national insurance? Are you being paid the correct amount and on time? So for instance, if you're doing some freelance work, let's say you're a graphic designer, and you sent an invoice to one of your customers. If you've got everything in the one account, it's going to be really difficult, and you might miss whether someone's actually paid their invoice or not. Again, keeping that separate will help you to manage your account better and make sure that you're actually paid for the work that you do for others. And again, if you're selling products online, making sure that you've received the right amount for the products that you've sold. So again, it's really important to have separate accounts. Now, what banks offer is you can have your main business current account, and alongside of that, you can set up business savings accounts for different things. So you can have a business savings account for your tax or your VAT, or if you're looking at some premises, or you want to save some money for your tax bill, so on and so forth. So you can open as many savings accounts as you want. There's no sort of charges or anything like that that are generally associated with business savings accounts. So that can really help to keep everything separate, that you can then focus on managing and running your business. This sort of leads us on to building your track record. So as your business grows, having a business relationship with your bank will become increasingly important. Now, for instance, so what we mean by that is if you want to apply for a business loan, for instance, and if you haven't had a business relationship, by that we mean a business current account, and you've not really built a track record or some credibility, or the bank can't really see any transactions going in and out of your business account, it's just going to become a lot harder for you to actually access the lending that the bank has to offer. So, you can also look at, if you're looking at importing and exporting, for example, perhaps you might want to discuss that with a relationship manager. So what banks don't really advertise a lot is that they offer different currency accounts. So for instance, if you are buying or selling olives to and from Spain, and you need to make a payment in euros, or you are receiving payments from customers in Spain that want to pay you in euros, so you're going to get a lot of charges when it comes to the currency conversion side of things, when you are changing the currency from sterling to euros and vice versa. So what a lot of banks offer is foreign currency accounts. So you can have like dollar accounts, you can have euro accounts, for instance, and you can actually leave the money in those accounts. And when the time is right, you can then, or when the exchange rate increases, you can then move that with a good rate into your sterling account that you have with your. Now, you might want a separate savings account, like I mentioned before, to save for your tax and for your tax payments, or for any sort of future investments that you're looking to make in the business as well. You might start off in rented premises. Now, you might want to be looking to purchase your premises. Now, a lot of students, a lot of startup businesses, a lot of freelancers, graphic designers, photographers, plumbers, electricians, you can name them. They pretty much all start from home. You know, you can have your office at home. Or if a bank asks you, where are you trading from, what's your address, you can actually state that you're actually using your home. And you can actually be remote as well. So, for example, if you are a beauty therapist or your hairdresser and you go to visit your clients' addresses or premises, or you rent a chair out in a local beauty salon, and you're self-employed, you can actually have your home address as your trading address, and therefore you don't really require premises for that. You know, you might want to look at offering different credit facilities to customers, or look at different methods of payments. Now, you know, do you require a business credit card, or perhaps you want to offer different methods of payments to your customers? And the last one, the spanner on the page there. So, you know, you might need to invest in assets for the business. And there might be better ways of financing those. So by speaking to a relationship manager, building that track record, they can sort of point you in the right direction. So for example, let's say you need a vehicle for your business. Now, rather than spending the cash that you've got in the business that you've saved up for the last 12, 24 months' time, perhaps look at a different option like asset finance, where the bank will take the car as security and lend you the money to purchase whatever car you want to buy. What that will mean is that you're not paying a lump sum out of your account, and you can use that cash to sort of reinvest back into the business that you've already saved up, and use it to buy stock, for example, or improve your services that you offer. And getting through to asset finance will mean that you pay a small monthly payment each month towards your repayments, and will have the option to either buy the vehicle at the end of the term by paying lump sum, or simply just give the vehicle back if it's no longer required. So again, it's about easing cash flow within the business and utilizing cash better. Moving on, it's good to talk. Now, there's a few quotes on there. So analysis has shown that firms who seek advice have much greater chance of securing finance, and you've got the evidence is unequivocal. Businesses that seek and engage external help are more likely to grow. So whether you're looking for the best marketing agency or in your area, or the best accountants who work locally, or even looking at broader business support, a business relationship manager will have a good network of community contacts, including other organisations in the industry that you operate in. So it's good to talk to your business relationship manager about your business. They can't give you advice. However, they can talk through possible product solutions, or at least even signpost you to other organisations that could help you. So for example, in my role, I work alongside the Business Growth Hub in Manchester, which is one of the organisations or many that I work with. And sometimes customers will come in and don't really understand finance, and they're looking to apply for a large loan, for instance, and they don't really know how to create a cash flow or struggling with their figures. So part of the business growth in Manchester, for instance, is that they have a team that will help and support you, and that's their purpose of really their existence. And they're appointed by government bodies and local councils to help and support. Now, if you're studying at the University of Salford, for instance, you've got your launchpad that you can sort of lean on and share your ideas, and they can signpost you to, faculty members that might be in the accounts department, for instance, who can help you and give you sort of pointers around how you can sort of finance out for your business, cash flow projections, so on and so forth. So, point being is, don't be afraid to talk to lots of different people to get solid feedback, whether that's about your product or service. Probably avoid talking to family members, for instance, because they will always give you positive feedback, because they'll be emotionally invested in you and your business, and they will always want you to succeed, even if you're failing. So probably avoid asking your parents, for instance, and focus more outside of your social circle. Ask your peers at university, for instance. Ask, when you're networking in your launchpad at the University of Salford, you can ask for there. You can go to networking events that you can find online through the local council, for instance. So again, so never be afraid of talking to people that you don't know about your business ideas, or even your products and services, because they're the ones that are going to give you the real feedback that make a difference. If you look at places like Amazon, the last time, if you think about the last time you purchased something through Amazon, or any website for that matter, the first thing that you tend to do is look at the reviews of that product. What are other people saying about the business and about the product itself? I think we've just had a question pop up about credit rating. I'll just sort of answer that question now, actually. So, how can you boost? So, we've got a question by Richard. How can you boost a credit rating, and do banks give customers a second chance with credit when mishandling a personal account and applying for a business account? Good question. So, whenever you apply for a business current account or credit product for that matter, banks will conduct a full credit check on your application. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that if you've got bad credit scoring, the account will be declined. Okay? So there's a lot of factors that banks take into account. So if you already have an existing personal relationship with a bank, that will be taken into account as well. Let's say you've missed a payment, for example, from a mobile phone, and that's being registered as a default. Now, generally speaking, if you're not really applying for any credit, the account should go through. However, that depends on the bank's policies and how lenient they are when it comes to accepting business accounts or any account for that matter. In terms of credit rating, how can you boost it? So you can register with credit reference agencies such as Experian. So for example, like Santander use Experian when we go through credit checks. So that's something that you can register with. Other banks would use different ones. There are many out there and they offer a free service, so you can check your credit file. Some might charge you for having access to your full credit report, and your credit report essentially will give you your full financial history. If you've missed any payments, what kind of credit score you've got based on that, so on and so forth. And one of the ways that you can boost it is make sure that you're not missing any payments. Make sure the accounts that you're not using, close them down because they don't really help you. So for example, if you've got a current account with whichever bank and you've not used it for like 10, 15 years, what's the point of keeping that open? Get rid of it, tidy up your accounts. Also make sure that you're registered on the electoral roll as well through your local council. So if you live in Manchester, for instance, you can contact the council and make sure that you are registered on the electoral roll. Because when banks conduct credit checks, they'll also look at the address and make sure that you're actually registered at that particular address. So that tends to be one of the sort of biggest factors that an account might be referred to an underwriter or might be declined for that matter. And worst case scenario, let's say an account does get declined. What you can look at is you can appeal that decision to an underwriter. So if you feel that there's nothing wrong on your credit report and you've checked it and a bank has declined you, you can put an appeal together, send that to the bank, and they will look at it and reconsider their decision. Now, they could either stick with the decision that's already been made, now that does tend to happen a lot when customers are applying for overdraft facilities, for instance, and again, whether that's personal accounts, business accounts, they tend to go through generally the same process when it comes to credit scoring. Does that answer your question, Richard? If you just want to pop a yes on. I bored him to death, but we'll continue anyways. So, what do you do next? So, the second section looks at how you decide on a business account that's right for a business and some of the questions a business owner should ask themselves when they're speaking to banks. And it's also important to think about what actions to prioritize over the next sort of few weeks. So, what do you do? So, where do you go? So, a lot of, as you can see on the bar graph there, so a lot of millennials say would spur them to switch banks would be free banking periods. So a lot of banks these days will offer you 12, 24, 25 months free banking. And that does tend to be quite a big hit with new startup companies. And why would it not be? You don't really want to start paying charges for a business account as soon as you started. You'd want some sort of leeway, just like you can start and get on your way of making success out of it. You've got things like good reviews from peers, which is another big one, and having better digital experience as well. That's quite important to a lot of millennials as well. So what's quite concerning on the right, 31% sort of Generation Z consumers who believe that they will not need to rely on banks in the future. So at the moment, a lot of banks, including Santander, they're having to change the way they operate. So the business models have completely, switched back to front. And from a digital perspective, so there's a lot of investments going into the mobile banking apps, for instance, the online application processes, other ways of doing applications via video conferencing or over the phone, for instance. Especially during the pandemic, a lot of members of staff have been working from home, so providing the technology for customers, for staff to be able to serve customers. So it's really interesting what millennials say, and their changing behaviours as well, which affect pretty much every organisation, really. What do you ask? So business owners don't always know what to ask when speaking to a bank. And before I go through the options, what's your views, and what sort of questions do you think you should be asking a bank? If you just want to put that in the comments, so for example, is the bank going to be open after hours, because that's when my business starts, for example. If you just want to put some comments in what you think you should be asking a bank when you go to open a business account or want to do business with them. Give you a moment to type your answers. Okay, so we've got Murat ask about lending programs available. Brilliant. Yeah. Any others? Okay, so I'll show you what you can sort of ask. So you've got things like, you know, have you got a relationship manager available to speak to? So a lot of banks don't offer that service to businesses. So they normally have a telephony team that will just sort of manage your generic queries, etc., but won't be able to sort of give you any sort of support or solutions as other banks may be able to do that. You've got things like, you know, what do you know about your sector? What type of business? You know, will they be able to help you? You know, if you're going into property management, for example, do they manage existing businesses that are already in there? Would they be able to pass any connections on to you at all? One of the biggest ones really is that, do you have a face-to-face option available? Especially like the new challenger banks like Starling or ones that don't really offer a face-to-face service. Everything is done online, and to be honest, you might actually prefer that because you don't really require to speak to anyone. But as your business grows and you require more sort of services, you look at lending, you look at buying a premises, it will be increasingly important at that time for you to have a good relationship. Again, just going down the list there, you know, do you provide online banking? What are the costs involved? Has the bank had any sort of data or security or IT issues? So some banks have had that in the past, which can affect your business as well at the same time. And can they provide products you need to run the business? So, you know, the bank that you're approaching, do they only offer a business current account? So some banks don't provide any sort of lending in the form of credit cards, and that might be something that you want to think about if you're thinking about, you know, improving your cash flow, as a credit card will sort of help you do that. And also, what non-financial help can they provide as well? So again, so it's referring back to sort of the track your record slide, and like, for example, Santander have the breakthrough events that we conduct where we invite local businesses and we have a subject matter expert who will talk about finance or who will talk about marketing, share their ideas or share their story, help other local businesses along. So there's little things like that that you probably want to consider, and it will be worth asking the bank that you go to get a better understanding of where they are as a business and where you want to be as a business as well. It sort of leads us on to the sort of last slide. So what do you do next? So there's no sort of specific or definitive list. However, there's some examples on here of what you need to do, or, you know, what order you need to take. So there's no specifics to that. But just to highlight some points that I made earlier about your legal structure, for example. Now, it's really important that you decide what legal structure you want to have in place. So whether you want to be a limited company, for example, or you want to operate as a sole trader. What are your tax implications going to be if you are a sole trader or a limited company? You know, if you want to be a partnership, for example. So one of the first questions that banks will generally ask you, or if you're completing applications online, is what is your legal structure? You know, are you a limited company? Are you a partnership? how many directors have you got in the business? How many shareholders are there? So all have different advantages, but the main ones that we come across as a bank is sole traders and limited companies. And then obviously we've got partners. We don't tend to see a lot of partnerships, but those will be like your sort of maybe perhaps solicitors firms. You can limit your liability as a partner, which means that you're not liable for the debt in the business in itself. You can have a formal agreement through solicitors, or you don't need to have a formal agreement. So there's various legal structures that you can adopt. But again, make sure you have the right one and you open the right account for the right legal structure. Have you looked at protecting your IP? So if you've got a specific or niche idea, or you've created this brilliant product, so in order for someone not to copy that, have you considered protecting it or trademarking it? If it's novel, for example. So at the University of Salford, you've got faculty members in the law department, which you can support. These are sort of free services that you can sort of take advantage of, and ensure that you're making a success. So the more people you speak to, the more success you'll have. And again, have you secured your domain name for your website? Have you done market research? How are you going to fund the business? So are you looking to take out a business loan from a bank, for example? Generally speaking, if you go to a bank to apply for a business loan, what they'll probably ask you is, well, how much are you contributing towards the business? Is the bank taking 100% of the liability? Which will sort of determine whether the bank wants to support you or not. Have you looked at business insurance? Now, no matter what you do, if you're giving advice to your customers, then you might want to look at professional indemnity, for instance. So in the event that your advice goes wrong, the insurance will take care of any losses that you incur as a result of that. So again, have a moment, have a think through, what to do next. And I think that sort of comes to the end of the presentation. If you've got any questions, just feel free to pop them into the chat section. And again, if you've got any questions later, I'll provide my contact details to Jess, who can give you my details. Again, Richard, if you want to pick up with myself separately to talk about credit scoring, I'm more than happy to do that as well. If you want to talk about any specifics regarding that. Come to Santander events, we've got the links on the page there about our breakthrough events that we've got going. So go on then, just find out what's going on around the country, and so you can view all our products and services that we offer through the Santander website as well. But do we have any questions?
Thank you, Rehan. That was really informative. I definitely learned some bits there as well. So if anyone does have any last minute questions before the session finishes, feel free to type them in the chat box, or as Rehan said, we can help you get in touch if you want to talk about business banking or credit scores, anything like that with Rehan. We will also be sending out live and recording after this session. If that is all, then thank you, everyone. If you do think of any questions, you can also email us at this email, and we can forward those on to Rehan or a member of the team. So thank you, everyone.
Well, thanks for your time, everyone, and all the best for the future. And like I said, if anyone would like to speak to me on a one-to-one basis, regardless of whether you're coming to Santander or not, that's sort of out of the question. I'm happy to sort of give impartial information and factual information about how you can go on about your FoE business current. So yes, so thank you for having me. Thank you. Take care. Bye bye.
Thank you very much. Thank you.